Los Angeles, California, America's second largest city. To most people, it's a place of sunshine, movie stars, and the beach. It's also a place of earthquakes, fire, and floods. We don't often think of the natural dangers that occur in LA, especially when the danger looks like fun. Most metropolitan areas are equipped to channel rainwater off the streets, down the gutters, and into a centralized channel or wash. There may be small amounts of water flowing down the gutters, but by the time all of the runoff accumulates into the main channel, a small rainstorm can create quite a power flow through the wash. This is the Pacoima Wash in the San Fernando Valley. Despite the many warning signs, people still get dangerously close to the water, and these storm channels have taken many lives down the drain.
Being all concrete, it gets a thin layer of moss on it because water flows on this concrete year long. And that moss is the dangerous part. There's no way that you can stand up in here.
The kids, they go across with their bikes or they try to run across it, and it might only be 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep, and they think they can come across it, and it's got such force to it that it just sweeps them out of their feet and they're gone.
It was April 4th of 1995. A rainstorm from 2 previous days had the Pacoima Wash flowing 2 to 3 feet deep. 4 children who lived in the area were going down to take a look at the rising water level. They had snuck through a hole in the fence, and part of the excitement was that they knew they weren't supposed to be there. This part of the Pacoima Wash is a big downhill run, so the water gets moving as fast as 20 to 40 miles per hour.
Look how fast this is going. Hey, Jordan, I dare you to go across.
Since the water didn't look that deep, the kids were trying to dare Jordan in the white t-shirt to try to get across to the other side. Not too far away, best friends Mike Grosso and Rick Mansour were on their way to a sports club meeting in nearby Lopez Canyon. Passenger Mike Grosso is a Los Angeles police officer who was just coming off duty. Meanwhile, back in the wash, the kids were still trying to dare Jordan to get to the other side. He was about to give it a try when the other kids decided to give him a little help. With the swift-moving current and the slick moss on the floor of the wash, Jordan was off on a high-speed ride. Rick and Officer Grosso were just approaching a bridge. Officer Grosso just happened to look out the window to his right.
We just weren't sure. We backed up and we looked again, and it looked like some clothes or maybe somebody was in the water, and it was whipping him along. We started to drive off, and we both looked at each other at the same time and said, I got a bad feeling about this.
As they sped through traffic and wound around to the next wash overpass, Officer Grosso could see out the van window that the object he spotted earlier was coming down the wash.
I looked over the side and I saw him go underneath us, and he screamed, and I ran across and I grabbed the hole of the lock, and I've never seen that type of lock before.
Officer Grosso had keys to any LA City lock, but they were just outside the city limits. Rick sped off to another gate.
And we found this gate, and it was one thing after another was just perfect. I ran up to the gate, my key slid into this lock, the lock as if it was just placed there, brand new. It opened right up, the gate swung right up, and boom, we were off. We were racing down the side, and I kept on looking back, and I couldn't see anybody in the water, and I thought maybe we just got just ahead of them, just enough to maybe do something.
As they sped down to the water's edge, they knew they were only seconds ahead of him. A life or death decision had to be made of how to save this young boy's life.
This whole area is a downhill run, and he got up to almost 40 miles an hour on this run. I saw him coming down. I had enough time to look at Rick, yell at him to call 911. I reached down, I pulled my belt open, and I looked over, and I saw him come up out of the water, and when he came up out of the water, water was just dripping out of his mouth. It looked like he was already in shock, and that was it. I took about 3-4 steps, and I figured if I can dive into the water and get real close to him, that's the way it's going to be. If I dive behind him, I'm going to follow him. If I dive in front of him, he's going to follow me. He was coming up out of the water. I took my steps and I dove. I was flipping around. I felt the boy in one hand, and I had something else in my other hand. And when my head cleared water, I had the boy in my left hand and a man in my right hand.
The other man was underneath the young boy in the wash. That's why Officer Grosso didn't see him. He clutched firmly to both of them as all three went down the river. Meanwhile, Mike's friend Rick Mansour had contacted 911, where they dispatched the Los Angeles City Fire Department hook and ladder from Fire Station 98 to the scene. The three continued to be swept down the wash. The third man had kept the boy afloat and literally saved his life. But who was this man, and why did he risk his life?
I kept the boy in my left hand, I kept the man in my right hand, and we raced towards the wall. About 50, 60 feet before the wall, my brain kicked in and said, if we're traveling this fast and you hit that wall, it's going to tear your arm off. And so at the last minute, I just leaned my body across. So I had the boy on one side and the man on the other side, and I hit the wall with my stomach and my chest. And all of a sudden, I was out of the water. And what had happened was the force of the water behind me had pushed me up the wall. And I grabbed the boy and pulled him up and put him in front of me.
They landed on the divider wall. The mystery man is just out of camera shot on the other side, where a fishing net is pulling him to safety.
The fishing net, a huge fishing net, and threw it over the side. And he wrapped his arms in it, and they dragged him out of the water to the side of the concrete.
The mystery man was safe. But who was he? Why did he risk his life to save this young boy? Some say he was Jordan's guardian angel, a man who appeared from nowhere and dove into a 40-mile-per-hour water current to keep the young boy afloat. An angel that appeared where no one was supposed to be and jumped in against all odds. The strange thing about this man is that after he brought Jordan to safety and was pulled from the wash, he disappeared into the background of all the rescue excitement, never to be seen again, with no recognition. The Los Angeles Fire Department lifted Jordan to safety. He had no idea that if this mystery man and Mike Grosso had not miraculously come across his plight, he was destined for an ill fate. Jordan's temperature was 89 degrees. He had lost some 9 degrees of his body temperature. Officer Grosso was brought to safety, and both he and Jordan suffered from hypothermia. They were rushed to a nearby emergency room.
Any Los Angeles police officer standing where I stood that day would have done exactly the same thing, which is true. So it's not me, it's just that someone else, someone larger than us, didn't want anything to happen to Jordan, and he set up all these dominoes to fall just the right way. Everything worked out absolutely perfect, and everybody walked away and no one was hurt.
For Jordan, the chance of his survival after falling in the wash was like winning the lottery. But for some reason, his guardian angel was waiting by the rushing current. And off-duty officer Mike Grosso completed the string of events that made Jordan's survival a true miracle.